Letchworth-Love Mounds Pavilion, an open-sided but covered rectangular area with picnic tables. The pavilion features a tactile model of the Great Mound on a platform where you are now, and a 16-foot-long mural spanning one side of the pavilion. You are at a round, low table, its surface a bit more than 2 feet from the ground. On its top, a few inches in from the edge, and on a 5-inch raised platform, rests a cast bronze model of the Great Mound as it stands today. The Great Mound is relatively symmetrical. Although this scale model ranges from 0 to a little more than 5 inches, the height of the actual mound is almost 50 feet. Feel the ramp or stairs located on opposite sides of the mound that lead people to the top platform. Explore the sloping sides, each with a similar platform. Imagine what kind of structures might have been constructed on them. What other features can you identify? On the edge of the table, around this tactile replica of the Great Mound, is a reader rail, a half circle of text and images providing additional information about the Letchworth-Love Mounds. From left to right, the first of 5 sections reads, Meaning of the Mounds. Even though people today are not in the habit of creating mounds, we do create our own modern equivalents. Architectural symbols such as Mount Rushmore, the Lincoln Memorial, and the White House represent our society's pride and patriotism. Letchworth-Love Mounds also inspired a sense of awe to the Weedon Island peoples. Our national symbols and Letchworth-Love Mounds were both created by people to leave lasting tributes to their cultures. Just to the right is an image of Weedon Island pottery, an amber-colored vessel, narrow at its base and flared to a graceful curve out, and rounded in to a rimmed top. One of its 2 handles is reminiscent of an eagle's beak. Moving to the right, the next section is titled Sacred Structure and reads, in part, American Indians considered mounds objects of sacred display, representing a connection with the earth. Although the exact layout and function of the Great Mound remains a mystery, we do know that it was probably used for spiritual and ceremonial purposes. The Great Mound's platform served as a foundation for at least one structure. More than likely, this structure was a residence for a religious leader or a sacred temple. To the right of this text is the image of a ceremonial mass. Light purple in color, it has a flat top marked with dark horizontal lines, but then curves along its sides to its bottom, where it frames a squared-off chin. Below the lines at top, bands extend diagonally from left and right to a roughly triangular shape in the center. The pointed top of the triangle extends to the forehead, while its rounded base is cradled between 2 dark, round eyes. The nose is long and thin, and descends to a mouth rounded in an O. Next, a feel for the Great Mound and the audio button. Just to the right is the image of a Weedon Island human face effigy. Facing to the right on an angle, this light brown cast of a human face includes a head covering above a broad forehead. Patches of stark white are on its right forehead, eye, cheek, and chin. The eyes have no pupils, and its nose seems worn or broken. At the right of the effigy is the text, Life at the Top, which reads, President, King, Emperor, Headman. Many societies in the Weedon Island culture were led by a head man. This person was usually a religious leader who linked ordinary people with the spiritual world. Unlike hereditary chiefdoms, the head man earned his position through strong leadership skills and a large religious and political following. This ancient culture was probably organized into smaller villages, or possibly even into family groups, each with their own head man. Another Weedon Island human effigy is pictured next. This one is quite different from the last. Amber in color, This is a full-body figure, but seems quite tiny. It faces forward, and its perfectly round, hairless face encompasses almond-shaped eyes. Most notable, perhaps, are its stump-like arms, extending up and out. Its right arm seems as though it may be cradling another figure. The effigy's thin legs are of a piece with the material from which it was carved, as if the figure is bursting forth from its confines. The last reading material, at right, is titled Platforms of Magnitude. It reads, "Many mound complexes, including the Great Mound here, feature platforms that served a variety of purposes. The largest mound at Ceremonial Mounds in Georgia includes a 2-level platform. Perhaps the most impressive platforms are found in Louisiana at Poverty Point. Multiple platforms can be found on crescent-shaped earth rings. These platforms likely housed residences for American Indians living at the site. Just about 10 feet from the model of the Great Mound is the Letchworth mural. The mural is dominated by a painting of Weeden Island American Indians in the foreground on a sandy plain. One man, clad only in a loincloth, kneels while holding a stick at the ground in one hand, and his other hand points to the right. He looks up at another man who has a cape draped over one arm and a large staff in his hand. This man wears a blue headband and a large copper-colored earring. Nearby, others carry logs and baskets on their backs toward the great mound at the rear of the painting. At the far left, a panel titled Lasting Impressions notes that if you were able to travel back in time over 1,100 years to the peak period of the Weeden Island civilization, you would witness the construction of one of the greatest feats of American Indian architecture in the region now known as Florida. While the exact details are yet to be discovered, the construction of the Great Mound required extensive planning and organization. Members of the community carried dirt in baskets weighing 30 to 230 pounds each. Below the mural, and stretching horizontally along its base, is a timeline that traces highlights in Florida and world architecture. The Letchworth-Love Mounds, dating from 450 A.D., are older than the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, created in 691. To the right is a touchable artifact, a reproduction of an early Weeden Island plain effigy vessel. This brown ceramic bowl is topped by bird and animal-shaped protrusions. Do they remind you of particular creatures? Further along to the right is a panel that asks, "Please touch these objects," reproductions of a Weeden Island bone artifact and a Weeden Island copper ear spool. The bone at left is narrow and tubular with a fingernail design on one end. Is it a hairpin? A feather holder? How would you use it? The ear spool, round with an outer band and one small central circle, is from the Ceremonial Mounds in Blakely, Georgia. In Florida, shells were often used to make adornments such as these. Finally, at far right, is an interactive display on the baskets used in the construction of the Great Mound. A panel labeled Basket Weave Patterns asks you to feel the difference. 2 square sections display separate weave patterns for you to explore. Text tells us that some baskets were so tightly woven they could carry water. Others needed to be sturdy to carry heavier loads. Which one of these patterns do you believe could carry soil? Next to this panel, at right, is a basket that weighs 20 pounds. Can you lift it? If all the baskets used to transport the soil needed to construct the Great Mound were like this one, it might have taken 14 million trips to construct the Great Mound.
And so concludes our tour with retired backyard birders.